what a big game this is then. West Ham versus Sunderland in the Premier League. A massive fixture if we are to stay in the league this season. It needs to be a win. It needs to be 3 points. But Sunderland are going to be a tough nut to crack. They've gone very well this season, and it's not going to be an easy game at all. But before I talk about that, just remind you to subscribe to this new channel if you haven't done so already. It'd be very much appreciated, as will dropping a like on the video if you do enjoy it. I'm also wearing a Iron Threads top, this half-zip grey jumper. If you like this or want to check out any other Iron Threads product, the link will be in the description. So yeah, check it out. But let's talk about West Ham then. Let's talk about this massive game against Sunderland, and it is absolutely huge. I feel like the next fixture just becomes bigger than the last. It is just like that at this moment in time, and this where we are in the season. And yeah, this one is no different. This is an absolutely massive game. I think most of me certainly, but most West Ham fans thought we were done. Let's be fair. We thought we were relegated, and I think in my head we probably still are. If I'm thinking with my head and not my heart, I do think we probably will still go down this season. I know that's quite pessimistic, but I probably think that is going to be the case. But that Tottenham game just give us a little bit of hope, didn't it? Just a little sprinkling of hope that there might be something there. And if we can put back-to-back wins together, if we can beat Sunderland, then. And if Nottingham Forest lose at Brentford, then we go within 2 points. And then at 2 points, anything can happen. Nottingham Forest could, start to struggle, feel the pressure, and we might go on a little run. But we never know. We never know with West Ham. But tomorrow is a massive, massive game, because I feel like if we do lose, it will just lose any momentum that we gained from Tottenham last Saturday. And yeah, it will almost confirm it in my mind that we definitely will be going down, and we'll get the odd result, but putting a string of results together is going to be too far for this team. So a massive game. Let's talk about Sunderland then and how they've been this season, which I have to say has been very impressive, the way they've gone about it, the approach they've taken to the Premier League. They currently sit 9th, and to be honest, I don't think they'll finish too far from that. They might drop down a few places as teams below them pick up some form, but it wouldn't surprise me if they finish 8th or 9th or 10th in the Premier League, which would be a fantastic first season back in the Premier League. And just the way they've approached it, really, the investment that they've given to the club, the playing staff, and the ambition they've shown, I think it's been very impressive. And we've seen it so many times with teams coming up. We've seen teams take different approaches. Some teams, like Nottingham Forest a few years ago, and this is what Sunderland reminds me a little bit, in the fact that they brought so many players in, didn't they, Nottingham Forest a few years back, and you thought that they can't possibly put a team together. And that was kind of what I thought with Sunderland, but they've obviously known what they're doing. They've obviously got a recruitment strategy, and they've actually brought in some players that have done really well for them, and yeah, really coped well in the Premier League and adapted well, and they've now actually built a really solid side. And I think that's the key thing from the way that they've been run this summer, Sunderland, or last summer I should say, in that they understood what is needed to compete in the Premier League. For too long we've seen promoted teams come up and just not get their squad adept to compete in the Premier League. And I think a lot of that now is physicality. We know how physical the Premier League is. We know how your team needs to be fast, strong, aggressive, intense to compete in the Premier League and to pick up points. That's one of the reasons West Ham have struggled so much. And Sunderland have done that. They've come in and they've brought in a lot of players that have helped them really bulk out their squad and be a real physical team that is hard to beat. That is one thing I would say about Sunderland. They are a hard team to beat. They've only lost one of their last 5, and they've picked up a few points in there, a few draws. But they've shown that they are hard to beat, particularly away from home as well. I think they've picked up some really good points away from home. So it's definitely not going to be an easy game for us. I think the ambition and the difference between the way the two clubs are run in terms of Sunderland and West Ham is very much highlighted in the striking department. So they come into, obviously Sunderland get promoted, they go into the summer just gone, and they've got 2 strikers already playing for them in Mayenda and Isidore. Now they could have been forgiven for saying, well, that'll be enough to cope in the Premier League. If we play 1 up front, or even if we play 2 up front, that'll be enough to get us through our first season. We don't need to bring another striker in desperately. But they didn't. They didn't think that. They thought, they went and brought Brian Brobby in. They thought that we need another one, we need another option, because we know how hard it is to find strikers in this Premier League that are going to score 15, 20 goals. We know it. We've been chasing that for years, and so have so many other clubs. You only have to look at a team like Arsenal, the best team in the Premier League, and Gyökeres, who cost them, 50, 60 million quid, however much it was, and how he struggled to adapt to the Premier League. So if Arsenal are struggling, it shows that bringing in that one striker that's just going to come into the team and start scoring, it's just not going to happen. And that has been the approach from West Ham over the last few years. You think of Haller, big signing, Skamaka likewise, even Fulkrug around 25-30 million quid. Like, he's going to be the striker, and he's going to answer all our problems. But Sunderland have taken a different approach. They said that's not going to happen. We're not going to find one striker that's going to do that. So let's use the three of them and have three different options, and they'll all chip in. And I think they have done at different points of the season. I think Isidore started off the season very well, scored against West Ham, which wasn't hard at that time, but it was an opening goal on the opening day. And then he's sort of gone off the ball a little bit, and then Brian Brobby's come in and he scored some goals of late, particularly last weekend, which was a really good goal. So they're sort of chipping in, and they've got a few options there. And you only have to look at the contrast to West Ham and how we approached this season. You know, we've gone into this season with Fulkrug, who couldn't stay fit, and Wilson, who's 33, 34 years of age. And we were crying out that we needed another option. It didn't have to be a massive, big summer signing, but we just needed another option just to come in and be someone, and particularly someone with pace and with legs that we clearly didn't already have. But our ownership, and the ownership blamed it at Potter's door, said he didn't want a striker at the time. But whatever way you look at it, we didn't bring a striker in. We should have brought a striker in, and now they've had to rectify that mistake in January. Spent 50 million quid on two strikers to try and give us a few more options, which we've massively needed, and it might be too little too late. And I think that difference in the striking options highlights the difference of the two clubs. Sunderland took a gamble. They thought, we're going to bring Brian Brobby in, someone that we were linked with actually, which is interesting, for the last few years. Whereas we just went, yeah, Wilson and Fulkrug will be enough to stay in this Premier League, and we might be proved wrong on that front. But yeah, back to Sunderland, I think they've been really impressive. I think they've taken to the Premier League really well. It's a real proper club. It is a Premier League club. I'm glad to see them back in the league. They do deserve to be back in the Premier League. They obviously will be. I saw the documentary on Netflix, and they've had some bleak years. And I think that gives me a little ray of hope that if we do go down to the Championship, that we'll probably have a similar thing with the stadium half empty, and the fans quite rightly not happy with the ownership. But you can see that the clubs can come back. You only have to look at Villa, who suffered a similar fate. And Sunderland, they've proven that. They've come back. The stadium is always full. Everyone seems aligned at that football club. They seem like they're moving very much in the right direction. So that gives me a little bit of hope for West Ham, that if we do go down, that maybe 5 years later you can come back up and be a proper team again. Because Sunderland are very much that. They're a proper team. But going into this game, I think they've got a couple of injuries, but not too different from the last few games they've played. So I expect their team to be similar. Us, likewise, we'll have Juve back. I don't know whether he'll go straight back into the team, but we'll have Juve back. We've still got the mysterious Paqueta injury, Paqueta back injury, which, I'm not sure I believe, but he doesn't seem like he'll be playing against Sunderland. So I expect it to be a very similar team. In fact, Nuno might just name that exact same team for the Sunderland game, and I wouldn't be completely, unhappy with that. I think I can completely understand that. I'm not a big fan of when you win a game just going straight in with the same 11, to be honest, because I do think different games need different players, and sometimes it's better to be proactive and say, no, I'm going to bring in this player for that game. But to be fair, if we did name the same 11 against Sunderland that we did Tottenham, I'd be pretty happy with that, and I don't think I would have too many complaints. For me, one change that I would make would be bringing Potts back in for Souček, and that's no slight on Souček. I think he's been a great servant and often maligned and often talked about, and that he's not strong enough to play in a starting Premier League team. But I think he's been a great servant for the club. I just think that the Tottenham game suited him a little bit more in the fact that we were always going to be deep. It was always going to be a low block. We were always going to hit Spurs on the counter attack, which meant we was going to, a lot of the time, be a compact unit and not a lot of space between defence, midfield and striker. That suits Souček, and the fact that he can't get about the pitch as well as he perhaps used to. But I think this game's going to be different. I think the game's going to be a little bit more open. We're going to have to be a bit more on the front foot. I think the spaces between the back line and our midfield is going to be bigger. And I think we'll need legs in the midfield, particularly to cope with Sunderland and the physicality they have as well, and the movement they've got in their midfield. So I would probably do that. I'd be proactive if it was me picking the 11. I would be proactive. I'd bring Potts in. I think he just gives us a bit more mobility in the middle of the park against Souček. And also, I think we'll probably have more of the ball against Sunderland than we did against Spurs. And I think Potts is just generally better on the ball. I think when he gets the ball from deep, he can just play simple passes, nothing special, but just keep the ball ticking over, give the ball to the likes of Fernandes, give it out to Somerville and Bowen. So that's the only change I would make. But like I say, I'd be fairly happy if we started the exact same 11 that we did against Spurs. But it is a massive game. I do think that he should go with the two up front, or Tati just playing off Pablo, or vice versa. I prefer Pablo as sort of his back to goal, big number 9. I don't think he's got a lot of strengths, Pablo, but I think that is one of his. He can hold it up. He can, fight against the centre back, occupy centre backs, and then Tati can sort of buzz around him. So I hope Nuno sticks with that, and I think he should do. And then I think that unlocks Somerville and Bowen on the wings to hopefully cause more problems. Somerville in really good form, so I expect him to start and I expect him to continue his form. And I think if he does so, we'll have much more chance of winning the game. But yeah, onto my prediction of what I think will happen. I think it's going to be a really close affair, real tight match. I think there's going to be some chances, particularly for Sunderland. I expect, with our defence, that they will have chances, particularly on the counter-attack. And it's going to be a real tough game. I would imagine that, my prediction, I'm going for West Ham 1, Sunderland 1. I just think we will end up being frustrated with that overall. I think we'll have moments where we can kick on and go and try and take the ball and be on the front foot and try and win the game. But I think Sunderland are, like I said before, they're a tough nut to crack. I don't think they give up many opportunities very easily. They certainly don't give up many goals very easily. And I think we'll find it difficult to get many past them. I think we'll get one, but I also think Sunderland will get one, which a point is not the worst result, but it's certainly not what we need. We need 3 points. We need to win the game. So I do hope I'm wrong. I do hope that we can win the game. But either way, I think even if we do win, it's going to be a real tight game. And yeah, it'll be a tough struggle and probably a tough watch as well. But let me know what you think in the comments, what you think will happen, what team you would pick. Would you make any changes? Be very interested to know your thoughts. So yeah, massive game. West Ham versus Sunderland. We need a win. Come on, you Irons.